Hi everyone. So I just wanted to make this video to introduce myself and then also kind of walk through some of the syllabus for this class, as well as show you how Canvas is going to work for this class. Hi, my name is Anna. I'm going to be your instructor for Calculus 1 this quarter. I'm sorry that I'm not going to be able to meet most of you in person, but hopefully we will do our best to make this a good quarter anyway. Like I said, my name is Anna. You can just call me Anna. You don't need to call me Miss Schindler or Professor or anything like that. I've been working at North Seattle College for about 2 years now. And this class, Math 151, is actually the class I've taught the most number of times. So I really enjoy it, and I think it will be a fun quarter. Just to give some more background about myself, when we're allowed to go outside more, my interests are usually rock climbing and running and hiking and camping, stuff like that. Now that we've been a little bit more stuck indoors, I've been learning to play guitar, so that's been fun. And now starting up learning how to teach online. So basically I just wanted to, like I said, we're going to go back and forth between looking at the syllabus for the class and then also looking at the Canvas for the class, so I can show you kind of like how things are laid out there. So right now I have the syllabus pulled up, and you can find this on Canvas. I'll show you where it's linked there. So as I put here, my office hours are going to be on Tuesdays and on Fridays. And actually, maybe let me say something before I get into that. So this, there are two different sections in this class. So you may have signed up for either taking this class at 10 or taking it at 1 back when it was an in-person class. And so I've had those two classes merged together just so that I can just make one Canvas for both sections. But you do need to keep track of which section that you were originally in, just because that will make a difference for when your final exam is going to be. So I'll get to that later. But yeah, so because there are two different sections, I have two different times that we're going to be having office hours. However, you're welcome to go at either time. It's not like you can only go to the office hours during the time of your original class. So office hours will be on Tuesdays and on Fridays from 10 to 10:50 and as well as from 1 to 1:50. So you can come at either time, whatever's best for you. And those are going to be held through something called Canvas conferences. So what will happen is you'll get an email or a message from Canvas when the conference is starting, and then you can just go and join. And I'll show you what that will look like on Canvas as well. So those are totally optional, but if you do have questions for me, you're welcome to come to those. And it'll just be like a virtual meeting. So you can type into a chat box or you can talk, whatever you're more comfortable with. Okay, so basic class structure. So this class is going to be completely online, as will the majority of classes that you would be taking right now. So each week I will be posting 5 videos. They're each going to be about 20 to 30 minutes. And then I'll also post a worksheet. And so the expectation is that every day you'll watch a video and do a worksheet. You don't need, we'll see in a second that I'm going to organize them on Canvas like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You don't need to do them on those days, but I would recommend spreading them out over the week. It's going to be a lot. You're not setting yourself up to learn well if you try to do all of the videos in one day. So I'd recommend, sticking to a schedule for yourself and spreading them out. There will also be weekly online homework assignments and quizzes, and I'll talk more about those later. There are going to be 2 midterm exams. Again, I'll bring up how those are going to work later, and a final exam. So all of this is going to be on Canvas, and you definitely want to be comfortable with using Canvas and checking Canvas. So I'm going to start by just showing you what our Canvas for our class is going to look like. So here it is. So you'll see when you log in on your home page, you're going to see a lot of the kind of most important information from the syllabus is listed here, as well as some links, and I'll bring these up a little bit later. But the main place that you're actually going to want to go in order to find stuff for the class is to click on the modules section. And so when you go to modules, you'll see that right now it's just week 1, but there will in the future be week 2, week 3, and that's where you'll find all of the information for that given week. So I'll get back to that in a little bit, but I just wanted to show you that briefly. So here you have all the information about, how much everything's worth, how I calculate your grades. You can look at that more closely later. So the textbook for the class, it's actually optional, and that's generally the case in my classes because I don't tend to really assign work directly out of the textbook. However, it's definitely good to have the textbook just as a resource for yourself, as a way to like have another place to look up problems or look up ideas, kind of reinforce the ideas that I'm teaching you. So our book the book that I'm kind of following along is this one. So Calculus Early Transcendentals by James Stewart. So like if you look at what I put on Canvas, so for example, if I go to this week 1 summary, notice that I have all these section numbers, like I say 2.1, 2.2, 2.2, 2.3. Those are referring to sections in this book. So that's what I mean when I say that I'm following along that book. So you definitely don't need to buy this book. I don't want you to go out and run out and buy like $100 copy of the book. You don't need to do that. If you can find a cheaper version, if you can Google the title of the book and you can find a free PDF, do whatever you got to do. It doesn't need to be this most current edition and it doesn't need to be a hard copy, but I would recommend finding the book one way or another. Okay. Other quick stuff, so calculator and graphing app. So there may be times during the class where you're going to want to have a scientific calculator. So a scientific calculator meaning that it can do logarithms, it can do sine and cosine, stuff like that. So you don't need to have like a actual calculator. You can get an app for your phone, or there's a lot of websites that have them. So I link one of them actually on our Canvas on the home page. So Desmos, I brought up, and I'll get back to that in a minute, is a graphing app, but they also make a scientific calculator. So I linked that on the homepage. It's just basically looks exactly like what you would have on an actual concrete scientific calculator, but it's available online. So you can always use that. So another thing, like I just said, is that sometimes you'll want to be able to graph stuff. And so if you have a graphing calculator, that's fine, that's great. There's also a website that I really like to use called Desmos. So I also linked that on our homepage. So Desmos is basically just a graphing utility. And it just gives you a lot of flexibility for graphing. So I'm going to graph like y equals, let's say ax squared. So you can do things like this. So here I'm graphing y is equal to ax squared, and I'm changing the values of a. So I can see what the graph looks like for different coefficients. So stuff like that. So it's really good for just graphing basic stuff, but also for kind of playing around with how the graphs can change when you change different features of them. So that's Desmos. Okay, so online homework. Oh, sorry, one other thing. So, and I'll get to talking more about quizzes and exams, but generally speaking, you're not going to be allowed to use a graphing calculator or graphing app on quizzes and exams. And the reason for that is that there may be times in the class where I want you to actually be able to graph things by hand or be able to figure things out without looking at the graph. So, it's a tool that will be good to use on homework and working through concepts, but not necessarily on assessments like quizzes and exams. So online homework, if you've taken classes with me before, this is going to be very similar to how online homework typically works. So I'm going to set up the online homeworks to always be due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So the idea is that just to kind of give you the flexibility to work through the topics from that week, whatever at your own pace, at whatever schedule works for you. So I'll show you in a second what that online homework is going to look like, but typically it will be about 15 to 25 practice problems. And the idea behind the homework is to give you a chance to practice what you've learned. So I'll show you in a second, but I would expect you not to like save all the homework to do in the end, but kind of do it as you go through the video lecture so that you're actually kind of practicing stuff close to when you learn it. So a couple of important things to know about the homework. So we have these things set up called late passes, and I'll show you hopefully what those look like in a minute. But basically, if you can't finish the homework by Sunday, what you can do is redeem a late pass, and that will extend your deadline by 48 hours. So it'll extend it to Tuesday at 11:59 p.m. So you get 3 of those to use throughout the quarter. So you can budget those to use for whenever, something comes up. So let me show you what the online homework is going to look like. So if we go to modules, so I arranged it so it's here under assignments. So if we click on homework 1, so the first time that you go into the homework, it'll ask you for your name. So I'm just going to put in test student. And so then you click on start assessment. And so you can basically just kind of click through the questions. One thing I just want to show you is that when you, it's not doing it. Okay, so on some of them, so on this one, because the answer is just a number, nothing is really kind of popping up. You would just type in a number. But on some problems, they might actually give you an option to pull up this, this like tablet with different options. So you can always use that if you're trying to type in something like a square root or something more complicated. You can use that. Another thing I want to show you is that on the online homework, sometimes there are links to videos. So the videos are not something that I made, and I can't really control which problems have videos and which ones don't. So for the most part, I check the videos and I make sure that they seem like they're good quality, but they're not always going to be like exactly the way that I explain it. You know, they might be a slightly different approach. And I would definitely recommend when you're using the videos, and I'll touch more on this later, but make sure you're trying the problem yourself first before you watch the video. You know, it's really tempting just to be like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Let me just watch the video and let them tell me how to do it. But you're really going to rob yourself of learning if you don't try it yourself first. So the videos are there to help you, but don't abuse them, basically. You know, make sure no matter what happens, you're actually learning. One other thing I want to mention about the online homework is that you get 5 attempts on each question. So that's 5 attempts, and you don't lose any points during those attempts, but after 5, it will completely close you out from attempting. So what that means is that if you're having a problem, like if you think that you have the answer right, but for some reason it's marking it wrong, please just send me an email. It might be that you're just not typing in your answer the right way. You know, there might be something I can help you with. I don't want you to get frustrated and just keep spamming it with different, oh, like maybe I need a negative sign, maybe I need a plus, you know, whatever. Don't do that. Send me an email and I can look at it and help you try to figure out what's going on so that you don't use up all of those attempts. Okay, so that's online homework. Let me go back to the syllabus. So something else that is new this quarter for an online class is that in order to have kind of a participation element, I'm starting to use a discussion board in the class. So basically, you're going to, every week, there's going to be a discussion board where you have to post either 2 questions or 2 answers to someone else's question, or you could post 1 question, 1 answer. Ideally, you're not going to post a question and then answer it yourself, but yeah, 1 question, 1 answer, whatever, however you want to distribute them. So you have to do that each week by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday in order to get credit for participation that week. So it's a little bit different this first week. So in the future, there's just going to be 1 discussion board. This week, because it's the first week, I made kind of 2 separate discussions. So the first one is introductions. So what I want you to do is just go on here and post a reply where you just introduce to everyone basically who you are. You know, let us know, because you're going to be conversing on the discussion board, I want you to, you know who each other are. So, you know, tell everyone your name, if you have a nickname or a different name that you would like people to use for you. Also your major, your program, and then, you know, something you like to do in your free time or anything else you'd like to share about yourself. You know, don't share anything you're not comfortable sharing, but just whatever you would like for people to know about you. So that's 1 post that you'll have to make this first week. And then the other post, and this is what it will generally be like, is just general questions about the class. So this week, you're only going to have to post 1 question or 1 answer. But in the future, you're going to have, there's not going to be that introduction thing. There's just going to be like a generic questions place. And so you'll have to post 2. So the types of questions that you are allowed to ask in order for this to count, they should be about math. It shouldn't be a question like, how do I get the online homework to load? Or when is this due? Not things like that. I want you to be asking questions like questions that you might ask in class, something about like, why is this the way it is? Or why can't you solve this problem that way? Or how is this related to this? Things having to do with math. You are allowed to ask questions about the homework, but please, if you do that, don't just ask, how do I do problem number 5? I want you to show that you've at least attempted the question. Ask someone maybe like, I'm trying this, but it's not working. Something a little bit more substantial than just saying, someone tell me how to do this problem, basically. And then similarly, if you're answering someone and they're asking a question from the homework, please don't just like give them the answer. Make sure that you're answering the question in a way where it's more of a discussion and it's not just you saying, oh, here's the answer. So that's the discussions. That's the kind of participation component of the class. So there's also going to be quizzes, and those are going to be on Fridays. And basically the way the quizzes are going to work is that I'm going to post on Canvas, on Canvas. Let me go back to Canvas and show you. So if you go down to the bottom of the week 1 module, we have quiz 1, so you'll click on the quiz. Right now there's just a description of what's going to be on the quiz, but when it gets closer, or when it's actually Friday, there will be a link to download a PDF of the quiz. And so what you'll do is you'll download that PDF, and then you'll do the quiz, and then when you're done, you'll click on this button that says Submit Assignment and use that to submit your assignment. And I'll get more into in a few minutes, like how exactly to go about submitting your assignment, what kind of file type I want, things like that. I feel like there's something else I was going to say. So I guess basically the quizzes, even though I'm giving you all day, I'm posting them at 9 a.m. on Friday and they're due 11:59 p.m. on Friday. That's not because it's meant to be like an all-day affair. It's just to give you flexibility. I don't want to assume that everyone's available at the same time. So the quizzes will generally be meant to take you like maybe 15 minutes. They'll probably be like a little bit more substantial than the kind of quizzes I would usually do in class if you've taken classes with me before. But they're not going to be more than like 15-20 minutes at the most. And the quizzes will generally cover material from earlier in the week. So things that we covered like Monday, Tuesday, maybe Wednesday is eligible for what could be on the quiz. Okay, so that's quizzes. So exams. So similar to the quizzes, there'll be midterm exams, and those will also be posted on Fridays. So there's one that's on Friday, May 9th. There's one that's on Friday, May 29th. And then they'll be posted at 9 a.m. on that day and then due by 11:59 p.m. On that same day. So similarly, these are not meant to be like marathon, you're going to be working on them all day tests. They're really going to be tests that are designed to take you like an hour. But I'm giving you the full day because I don't want to assume what your availability is that day. On the other hand, the final exam, so because, when you signed up for this class, you're kind of agreeing to the time slot of the final exam, I am going to require that you're available to take the final exam at that specific time. So if you signed up for the 10 a.m. class, then that means your final exam is going to be Wednesday, June 17th from 10:30 to 12:30. And if you signed up for the 1 p.m., oops, I have a typo here. This should say 1 p.m. I will fix that when I upload it. So if you signed up for the 1 p.m. section, then your final will be on June 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. So similar to the quizzes, I'll upload the PDF on Canvas, and then you'll take the quiz or the exam and then upload your answers. And I'll give you a little bit of extra time beyond that window to upload your answers so that you'll have like 2 hours to do the exam and then some extra time to get your work uploaded. Okay, so let's see. Submitting quizzes and exams. So this is going back to what I mentioned earlier with the quizzes as well as the exams. So basically, so I'm going to post a PDF on Canvas for both the quizzes and for the exams. If you have a printer at home and you can print them out and then write your answers directly on them, that would be like ideal. I know not everyone has a printer, so it's fine if you don't. But if you do, go ahead and do that. If you don't have a printer, just make sure that you're really like organized about where your work is. And so I can tell, oh, here you're answering number 1, here you're answering number 2, and it's easy for me to tell which question you're answering. You also do need to show all of your work, and this is especially important for an online class. So the way that, I know that, and I'll get into this later, I know with take-home tests, there's a lot of stuff that can happen. I'm going to have certain expectations for what you are and are not allowed to use. But one thing that I'm going to emphasize in order to kind of like make you less likely to want to cheat is I'm really not going to be looking so much just for, do you have the right answer? I'm going to be looking at, can you explain how you got to the answer? Can you show all of your work? So it's going to be really, really important on quizzes and tests that you show all of your work. I'm going to be looking really closely at your work to make sure that you are approaching this question in a way that I can tell that it's your own work, it's not copied, and that you're understanding what you're doing. So once you have finished the quiz or the test, then what I want you to do is take clear pictures of your work. So there's a lot of like scanner apps out there that you can use if you want. Those kind of like take your pictures and make them look more like a scan, so they look like very clear and crisp. You don't have to use those, but what I am going to require is that if you have multiple photos, you have to compile them all into one PDF. And if you have one photo, you make that a PDF as well. So I linked on the home page here, a conversion. And I'm sure there's apps like this too, but there's a website here that I linked that's just called, I think, smallpdf.com. Yeah, smallpdf.com. So it's really easy, it's free. You can upload as many files as you want, put them all into one PDF. The reason I'm asking you to do this is because, as I learned last quarter, it's really, really tedious to grade things online, and it just makes it a lot easier if everyone has everything compiled into one file. So I actually restricted it so that when you go to upload a quiz, it's only going to accept your file if you make it a PDF. So it is required that you convert it to a PDF. And if you're having trouble figuring that out, please just email me. I'm happy to help you. Ideally, not right before the quiz is due, but sooner than later. Okay, so before I get on to some more general stuff, I want to just kind of walk through a few more things on Canvas, just in terms of like what's due coming up, so that you have all that. So as we've talked about, the general stuff that is going to be going on every week is that you're going to have videos and worksheets for each day. So the worksheets are not going to be something you have to turn in. They're just something for your own good. Watch the video, do the worksheet to kind of reinforce what you did. Then you'll also have online homeworks that are due on Sunday. And then you'll also have to post 2 discussion topics per week. And then there will be quizzes on Friday. And I know it sounds like a lot, but the homeworks I make are really not that long. And again, the quizzes are going to be short. They really aren't going to take you more than like 15 minutes. One other thing I meant to mention, I'm not sure if I did. So when you do the online homework, if you look at the summary I post here, for each day, I tell you which section we're covering, and then I also tell you which homework numbers you should be able to do after watching that video. So the way I would recommend doing the online homework is, again, rather than doing it all at the end of the week, each day, watch the video, do the worksheet for that day. Together, the video and the worksheet should really only take you like 45 minutes to an hour. It's meant to be like the length of a normal class. And then look at this list here and see what are the homework questions that I should be able to do after this, and just do those homework questions right away. That way you're getting the practice and you're not kind of saving it all for the last minute. So that's stuff that is going to happen every week. This week there's a couple of extra things, and this is really important. So listen up if you're distracted. So there's 2 extra things here. One of them is what's called the introduction survey. So the introduction survey is basically just a way for me to have a bunch of information about you on file. So that sounds intense, but it's just basically asking, some things like, what's your major? Are you planning to take more math classes in the future? Do you have a job or anything else that is going to interfere with your work getting done? Do you have internet access reliably? things like that that just kind of are good for me to know about my students. And it will also ask you to upload proof of your prerequisite. So that's really, really important. That's something I guess I didn't really mention. So in order to take Math 151, you need to either have received a 2.5 or higher in Math 142, or you need to take the placement test. So I'm going to be asking for proof of those things. And if you don't have proof of one of those two things, I'm going to unfortunately have to drop you from the class. So please, please, please do that and get in touch with me right away if you have any concerns about that. The other thing is this thing called the syllabus quiz. So that's basically just a quiz where you have to read through the syllabus. And honestly, I probably covered most of it in this video, but there might be some details that you want to read through the syllabus and just answer some questions just so I can like verify that you know all the stuff you need to know about the class. So those two assignments, basically, typically when you take a class at North, there's an attendance policy which says that if you are not showing up for class during the first week of class, instructors are allowed to just drop you. No questions asked. And so I'm going to use those two assignments as like a replacement for that, because I just want to make sure that there are no students in this class who are like not actually taking the class. So if you do not complete those two assignments, the introduction survey and the syllabus quiz by Friday, and by the way, each of them should only take you like 10 minutes or something like that. So if you don't complete those, I'll send you an email, be like, hey, are you still trying to take this class or not? If you don't get back to me within 24 hours, I'm just going to drop you from the class because I don't want to have students enrolled in the class who are not actually taking the class. So that was that. So one other, let me just make sure I'm not missing something. One other thing I just want to point out on Canvas. So I made this extra module here, and so this is totally optional, but I think it's a good idea, especially if you know, you're trying to get started on stuff before the quarter actually starts. I made two homework assignments. Again, they're totally optional, that are both just reviews of pre-calculus topics. So the first one is going to go through topics that you would have taken in Math 141, and then the second one is topics for Math 142. So I would take a look at those assignments, and basically if you look through those assignments and you're like, I don't know how to do this stuff, just know that the material in those homework, those are not things we're going to cover in this class. Those are things that it's assumed that you know how to do before taking this class. So I just like to be really upfront about that, because if you're going to be successful in this class, you really need to know how to do the things that are on those assignments. So I would recommend checking those out, looking through them. You know, of course, if you're like a little rusty, that's fine. But if you're like, I have no idea, I've never seen this before, then you might need to kind of reconsider whether you're ready for this class or not. So both of those are set up so that you can try any question as many times as you want. They're going to be open all quarter long, so you can just kind of pop in and look at those anytime that you think it might be helpful to you. Okay, lots of talking. So just a couple more things I want to mention. So I just want to talk a little bit about kind of my expectations for this class, and a little bit about like why I do things the way I do when I teach, and then also just mention a few things specific to especially online classes. So one thing that's really important to me, so I'm going to start off here, is that I consider math to be something that is about understanding rather than memorizing. So I'm going to really always try to emphasize the concepts rather than here's this formula to memorize. You know, of course there will be some formulas like in any math class, but I'll try to really explain where those formulas come from and not make things just about memorizing the formulas. And similarly, like I mentioned, especially with an online class, the exams and the quizzes, they're going to be asking you to explain yourself and basically test your understanding, and not just can you regurgitate some kind of a procedure. Okay, second one is really, really important, especially for an online class. So math is not a spectator sport. So I say this even when I'm teaching in person, but I think it's especially really, really, really important for an online class. So I don't want you to think that you can just, you know, sit at home on your computer and just watch the videos I post and that will be enough for you to learn. You know, think about, like, let's say you wanted to learn to play guitar. If you go pull up a bunch of YouTube videos and you watch someone else play guitar and they show you how to do all these chords and all this stuff, does that mean that you're automatically going to know how to play guitar? No, of course not. It could be the best teacher in the world and you're still not going to you're still not going to be able to do it unless you try it yourself. So it's really, really important that you keep that in mind. Keep in mind that I'm going to do my very best to give you everything you need to understand, and I'm going to explain things as clearly as I possibly can, but it's not enough for you just to listen. You really need to kind of get your hands dirty and try this stuff yourself. And so when I post the videos and the worksheets, you really, really need to do the worksheets. If you're just watching the videos, you're really not kind of setting yourself up to learn. When I post the worksheets, I will include solutions, but again, you don't just read the solutions and think that's enough. You really need to try these things yourself before you look at the solutions. So on some level, you have to take responsibility. Especially with an online class, I think it's really easy to kind of just slack off and do the bare minimum. And, if that's what you're going to do, that's your choice. But, if you're trying to get the most learning possible out of this, you need to take some responsibility for that and make sure that you're being proactive and, and trying things yourself. So last one here is sadly a little bit less relevant right now. So last one says math is collaborative. And actually, sorry, let me go back to one other thing before this because I forgot to emphasize it. So the other thing I wrote here is that math isn't easy. So the reason I like to point that out is that I think a lot of people have this kind of like false idea that some people are good at math and some people aren't. And, if you're struggling, it must just mean you're bad at math and you should give up. And I just think that is totally, totally false and really, really not a helpful way to think. So I just want you to prepare yourself that some of this stuff is going to be hard. It just is. There's really no way around it. Again, I'll do my best to kind of explain things and simplify them as much as I can, but if you're struggling with something, I don't want you to think there's something wrong with you. It's okay to struggle. It's actually really good to struggle because that means that you're going through the process of learning. So you should really kind of prepare yourself, set yourself up that if you hit a point where you don't understand something, realize that that's okay and that you're going to have to put in some hard work and some hard thought sometimes to really get to the bottom of these ideas, and don't beat yourself up, if you feel like it's taking you a while to understand something. Okay, so last point, math is collaborative. So generally in my classes, I really like to have group work be a pretty prominent feature in the classes. Unfortunately, we're not going to be doing that, but I would encourage you to use the discussion boards and reach out to each other, make friends in the class. Maybe you already have friends in the class. I think the more you can talk to each other about stuff, it's really going to help you understand things better, and it's also just going to make the class more enjoyable. Especially with everyone being stuck in our houses, it's easy to feel alone, and I just want you to feel like you're part of a community in this class. So I hope that we can create that even though we're not meeting in person. Okay, just a couple more things. So academic honesty. So again, this is something that I think is really especially important with an online class. So there is a lot out there, right, on the internet. You can find pretty much anything you're looking for on the internet. And when it comes to math, I know about all the stuff that's out there, right? I know about Chegg, I know about Course Hero, I know about all these websites that you can find answers on, Photomath, whatever. I'm not gonna list them all out for you. And I think for the most part, having all these resources can be really good. It's like having a library at your fingertips. However, you really have to make sure that whatever you're doing is helping you to learn and not hurting your process of learning. So, if you are doing your homework and as soon as you get stuck, you just immediately Google the question or, type it into Chegg or whatever, you're keeping yourself from going through that learning process. So just keep in mind, every time you do something, ask yourself, is this helping me learn or is it hurting me from learning? If you find a solution and you read through it and you understand it and you kind of can recreate it yourself, then yeah, maybe that helped you learn. But if it becomes a pattern where every single homework question, you're looking it up before you even try it yourself, then that means you're not really learning. And maybe you'll get through this class just fine, but then when you get to your next class where everything's not online, you might run into problems. So make sure you keep that in mind. Other thing is that on the exams and quizzes, they're not open book exams and quizzes. I know you'll be at home, and I know I won't see what you are and aren't using, but I ask that you do not use the internet, don't text each other, don't communicate with each other. It really should be like an in-class test or quiz, the only difference being that you have more time basically to work on it. I will be keeping an eye out for things that seem suspicious. I will be, checking Chegg and seeing what the answers are there, and making sure that things aren't being copied. And I'm not afraid to give zeros on things if I can tell that you cheated. So please be honest and be fair to yourself and to me and to everyone else in the class by taking this seriously and by not cheating. Okay, last thing, I think, and there's some more information on here that will be good to read, but I think the last thing that is maybe worth discussing together is ways to get help. So as I mentioned, I have office hours, and I think those are a really good place to ask for help, because that way we can have kind of like a back and forth. You can ask me questions, I can answer, we can go back and forth. You can also email me questions, and I will check my email regularly from about 10 to 6, Monday through Friday. Those will be my kind of like work hours. So if you email me outside of those times, I may respond, I may not. I might take a little longer to get back to you. So just keep that in mind. It's probably not the best idea to email me like if the homework's due at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. If you email me at 11, I'm not going to email you back. So make sure that you keep that in mind. Other thing is that there's the discussion board, so take advantage of that. I know you're getting credit for it, but you can also just use it because I think it's helpful to ask your classmates for help when you're stuck on something. Last thing is that the Math Learning Center obviously is not open this quarter because the whole campus is closed, but they are offering virtual tutoring. So I linked that from on the homepage. So if you go to Math Learning Center Virtual Tutoring, basically they're doing it through Zoom, which is like an online meeting program. And so they have a scheduling page you can go to and figure out what schedule will work for you. They also have a tutorial to help you figure out how to use Zoom. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. The tutors that work at the Math Learning Center are really great, and it's the same people. It's the same tutors that you probably would have worked with in the Math Learning Center are now doing it online. Okay, so I think that's about it for what I have to say. So go back to our Canvas for a second. So I definitely recommend taking a little bit of time getting yourself acquainted with Canvas, seeing how all that works, and then you can do the syllabus quiz, make sure that you understand how the policies of the class work. And then I will start posting videos. The first video will be posted on by Monday, next Monday. I don't know when you're watching this video. Monday, April 13th is when the first video will be posted. And generally I'll post videos like either the night before or the morning of the day that they correspond to. All right, that's it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I look forward to, I guess, not meeting you, but being your instructor this quarter. Bye.